Hi there, this is the second part for the 8th lecture on comparative literature presented by Sumio Umekawa with my old picture. Um, this picture looks like as if my younger sister was punching me and that's why I was crying. But it was indeed, I had smashed my face onto something and that's why I was crying. And because of that smash, I had a bloody nose and I believe my younger sister was trying to comfort me. Okay, in the second movie, we examine the collection, Tales of Moonlight and Rains. Firstly, we study the construction of the collection, which will be followed by the survey on the hidden meaning of the construction. So, almost all the stories in the Tales of Moonlight and Rains are based on Chinese stories, with few exceptions, which are based on Japanese classics. In either way, you have to have certain knowledge on Chinese literature to enjoy the collection in full quality. And there are 9 stories in 5 volumes in the collection. All of them are either fearful or strange. And many scholars assume that all the stories somehow deal with love and its collapse, or human nature. Except for the first volume, each volume contains 2 stories, which apparently represent yin and yang of Chinese conception. Thus, yin stories are supposedly end with sad, bad, or miserable situations, whereas yang stories end with hopeful situations. The first volume includes only one story, which seemingly involves both the yin and yang sides within itself. So let's move on the hidden meaning of constructions. The collection is consisted as follows. The first volume include White Peak and Chrysanthemum Tryst. White Peak was seemingly yin story, whereas Chrysanthemum was yang story. The following second volume is consisted of The House Amid the Thickets and The Carp That Came to My Dream, which is the one we are going to read. The house is a yin story, whereas the carp is a yang story. The third volume has Bird of Paradise and the Cauldron of Kibitsu. In accordance with the former 2 volumes, Bard should be yin story, whereas the Cauldron should be yang story. Although the Cauldron is one of the very famous, very fearful story. The first volume only includes the Last of the White Snake, and as the last is only one story in this particular volume, it is a quite long story. The final 5th volume contains The Blue Hood and as yin story and Wealth and Poverty as yang story. In order to understand yin and yang contrast in each volume, let me explain what kind of story each tale is. So, the very first story in the first volume, White Peak, was based on the first and second volumes from Sing Shu Shou, allegedly edited by monk Saigyo. And in this story, Saigyo, a monk, uh, debate against an angry ghost of the Emperor Sutoku, who was also famous as an angry ghost, which could cause a calamity widely in society. With Saigyo's sutra chanting, deformed Sutoku apparently calmed down. Though the society still shifted as Sutoku foretold, um, Stoku started to be worshipped as an angry, revengeful ghost. The second story was also involved in the volume one, Chrysanthemum Trust. This story was based on 古井小说 in China, but staged in the Warring States period in Japan. And the hero, named So Emon, left his lover, Samon, with the promise to meet him on the day of Chrysanthemum, meaning 9th of September. But Soemon was captured, and he could not keep his promise to meet his lover Samon again. So he killed himself so that he could fly to Samon as a ghost. And so Soemon could meet Samon as a ghost, and Samon knew the fact that Soemon killed himself so that he could keep the promise with Samon. Samon buried Soemon and revenged his enemy, and which was actually praised by the boss of their enemy. The third story was included in volume 2 as the first one, The House Amid the Thickets, which was based on Ai Qingchuan from Jianden Xinhua. Although, again, the staged in the Warring States period in Japan. In this story, the hero was called Lazy Katsugoro, and Lazy Katsugoro left his wife to raise money. But Katsugoro returned to Miyagi, his wife, 7 years later to find a wife becoming as thin as a branch. And he, of course, said sorry to her, and she, said something like "I was waiting for you under the very hardship" or something like that. And he woke up in the following day in an abandoned house and found out his wife had already been dead. The first story is The Cop That Came to My Dream, which we are going to read. And this story was based on Magistrate Xue, which you had been reading from Stories to Wake the World. So, in The Carp, the stage was shifted in Japan. And in this story, a monk called Kogi, instead of Magistrate Xue, who was very good at drawing, loved to draw a carp. And Kogi passed away, but his corpse was warm, and therefore his disciples remained his corpse for 3 days. And 3 days later, he was actually revived. When he really passed away, his drawings were released in the pond, and carps drawn in the paper swam away. The fifth story is included in the volume 3, Bird of Paradise. This one was based on Mu Denting from Jianden Xinhua again, although the stage was in Edo period Japan. So this is a story about a traveling father and a son climbing up to Mount Koya, where they heard bird song. Then they were surrounded by ghosts of Toyotomi, and they were about to be kidnapped to the world of the dead. They fainted until the morning and ran down the mountain. The sixth one was placed in the second story of the volume 3, The Cauldron of Kibitsu. This one was based on Du Fu Lun from Wu Zu. I'm not quite sure about the pronunciation and Shongyin, but anyway, although again the stage was shifted in Japan. Um, I think this was very famous one, and maybe some movies were created on the basis of this story. But anyway, the hero was named Shotaro, and he had got married with a lady called Isora, but their marriage had a bad omen from the beginning. Um, anyway, Shotaro ran away with another lady, and Isora died. And Shotaro was later haunted by Isora, and Ghost Isora tricked Shotaro, and he died only with his hairs left. The seventh story is The Last of the White Snake, which was based on White Snake sealed in Leifun Tower, which is a very, very famous story in China. And but the one Ueda Akinari referred to was the White Snake story included in a story to caution the world. But again, the story was staged in Japan. The hero was Toyo, and who fell under Manago, who is actually the White Snake's spell. And every time he tried to escape from her, someone died. And Toyo remarried with a human called Tomiko, who was again spelled by Manago the snake. And Tomiko ended up in death, though the snake was sealed. And Toyo actually survived. The eighth one was included in the first story in the fifth volume, entitled as a Blue Hood. This story was based on a folk story of a temple in Ibaraki Prefecture. And there was a monk who deeply loved his boy assistant, and he transformed into a demon after eating up the beloved dead boy. A traveling monk gave a religious riddle to this demon monk, and after a year, with the help of the traveling monk, the demon monk disappeared. Again, this is, I think, a rather famous story. So the last ninth story was placed in the second and the fifth volume, entitled as Wealth and Poverty. This was based on episodes of Okano Sanai, who was very famous for his way of dealing with money. And in the story, Sanai, who was very much interested in money, discussed about wealth and poverty with a god of money. And the god says something like saving to become rich is a technique which has nothing to do with Buddhism or Confucianism. So here, um, the story actually kind of denied the religious or philosophical um, backgrounds of people's wealth and poverty. So far, we have compared stories in accordance with yin and yang. However, many scholars believe that Ueda Akinari ordered stories in this way with yet another or other intentions. One possible intention could have been its continuality. The first story, White Peak, is a tale of returning to nirvana or release from resentment of the angry ghost. The following chrysanthemum was also the story of Ghost, although he was the one who killed himself for his promise, and therefore his becoming ghost was not because of resentment. The second story was also about homosexual love. Meanwhile, the following third story deals with a promise again, although in the third one the promise was not kept. It also deals with love, this time between husband and a wife. Furthermore, the house is a story of a dead who cannot return to his life because she is mortal. However, the following fourth story deals with a returnable death. It also concerns Buddhism. The fifth story, which follows the fourth, of course, also deals with the return. This time it was a return of a living, and from the other to this world. Moreover, it also touches with Buddhism, as the bird song which attracted the dead sounded like a chanting of sutra. The following sixth story also focuses on living, though he should deserves revengeful deaths by his wife. Whereas the fifth touches upon Buddhism, this sixth does upon Shintoism, in which divination is performed. Also, here again, we see the love between a husband and wife, again, with not a very good end. The following seventh story about the snake shows us again a love between a husband and a wife, which sometimes goes well. However, it was also a story of love between different species, which usually does not go well. Furthermore, here we see obsessional love from one of the pair, which leads the story badly and fearfully. Finally, instead of Shintoism, it returns to deal with Buddhism again. The following eighth story is again a homosexual love, just like the second story, but it continuously deals with the love as a dangerously obsessional one, like the seventh. It also focuses on Buddhism, including the idea of returning to nirvana, like the first one. Differently from the first one, though, the demonic monk was not angry. So here we don't see the release from resentment. So far, 8 stories were moved to similar but different topics amongst life and death, kept and broken promise, homosexual and heterosexual love, admirable love even though without a happy ending, and unadmirable love, and Buddhism and Shintoism. The last ninth story tells us, at least in terms of becoming rich or not, was nothing to do with religion or philosophy. Possibly the ninth story can be understood as a sort of denial of religion or philosophy. So this is the end of the second part of the eighth lecture, which means this is the end of the eighth lecture, which was rather short in comparison with the previous other lecture movies. But anyway, see you in the ninth in-person lecture again.